Hey everyone, what's up? We're back with some more high stakes hand history reviews, and we're gonna have Linus again. Still big pots going on at GG Poker. Now I'm sure I don't need to remind you guys, but a lot of the reason that we're looking at these high stakes hands is to learn from the best. So whenever we see something weird going on, or all these hand histories that are played by very expert level players, and we want to understand what's going on, kind of dive into the thought process of what they're doing and why, and learn what we can from it. First hand, heads up hand between Linus and Guerrilla. I actually remember I was sweating this one live a bit, and I was like, well, what's Guerrilla doing playing Linus heads up? What's going on? And I think part of what's going on is that even though Linus is considered the greatest heads up player these days, he hasn't been seen battling very much lately, and probably some people might suspect he's rusty, and we'll see if he proves them right or not. So Linus raises, we get a Queen 7-4 two-tone board, and Linus starts out with a 2/3 pot bet size. Now, we very often see people range betting their, small bet entire range. This is not Linus's style. Linus knows how to play the various different bet sizes and styles. Queen 7-4 two-tone is connected and dynamic enough of a board where you would prefer having a bigger size. A lot of people still skip just because it's complicated a little bit. Linus took the trouble and studied all these things, I'm sure, very, very thoroughly. So he goes with a 2/3 range, and this indicates a polarized range construction. So we're not going to see as many hands like pocket fives or ace jack high or hands like that. And the range is going to be more centered, or even pocket jacks. It's going to be more centered. Very strong hands and bluffs, and of course some mixes because you need to be deceptive, but that's going to be the bulk of what's going on. Turn 8 of clubs, very equity shifting card. Imagine Linus having kings or aces or something like this. Straight comes in, flush comes in, so both players can have these, and here, even if Linus started with a kind of polarized strat, this is a card that's going to slow him down a lot. And we see a 2/3 bet size, which kind of acknowledges the fact that he no longer has a big range advantage where he's just pushing his kings in and getting money in, and he needs to be wary of the fact that Guerrilla also turned a bunch of flushes and straights. River, deuce of spades, complete brick, and Linus overbets 1.5x the pot, and we have a call by Guerrilla. Let's see the hands. So first of all, Linus, jack of clubs, 5 of spades. Very naturally played hand, very sharply played hand. What should stick out to you guys is just the suits, right? Having the club and the spade and the 5 blocking the straight, like this is a hand that kind of screams out to you, should scream out to you, bluff me, because it's just blocking lots of continues on the flop, it's blocking continues on the turn, it's blocking continues on the river. Kind of hard to imagine not firing 3 streets with his hand. Guerrilla, on the other hand, has a fairly straightforward flop and turn call, and the only question he needs to ask himself is on the river, is this a bluff catcher where I get to sometimes fold Queen 8? Like, has Linus put in enough money where he's never betting Queen 7 himself? And then you want to mix calling and folding? Or is this a pure call where, if you suspect Linus is still betting something worse, like aces with a club or Queen 7 himself for the sizing scheme that we see here, then this is a pure call. That's really the question for Guerrilla. Do you want to always call or sometimes call? Personally, I'm not completely sure where to draw the line heads up, and a lot of being a very good heads up player is knowing where to draw the line. But, if you're not sure, obviously call. Like when you have Queen 10 with a 10 of clubs, you can mix that hand. But here, because personally I'm slightly unsure, I would lean towards always calling Queen 8. Or if you have something like 4-7, obviously, then that's clearly a lot more of a mix. So yeah, kind of standardly played hand. I think in terms of what we can learn, you can see the kind of super backdoor hand screaming out bluff me, in case it's not screaming that out at you guys already. And we have the river bluff catching decision where we look at our top 2, and we need to be aware enough of where our opponent's thresholds are to understand, is this a sometimes call because it's a bluff catcher and maybe Linus is bluffing? Or is it an always call because it's what I call a value catcher? Very, very important thing in poker. You need a very strong reason, a very weak opponent, a very good read to ever fold a value catcher. You only tend to fold the bluff catchers on the river. Heads up again, Guerrilla and Linus, roughly 80 deep with antes, that's maybe more like 70 deep. We have a raise and a 3-bet from Linus, turn calls, and we have an ace 10-5 monotone board. And the interesting thing here is the flop action and the sizing. So Linus starts out with a 10% bet. It's raised to half pot, clicks it back, goes all in, calls. They have 5s and ace-10 suited, so hands make sense. But you need to ask yourself, why did Linus bet 2 big blinds on the flop? The answer has to do with 2 things. One is the ace-high board texture, and the other is the monotone. Now, generally, when a board is monotone, that's going to make you size down your bet size. There's something symmetrical about monotone boards where both players have a lot of flushes, so we're less thinking about the nutted part of our range and less concerned with getting in stacks. And that means that our sizings just get smaller because our sizings are centered around different parts of our range that don't want to get in stacks. We're making more kind of protection bets and thin value bets and equity denial bets. So whenever the board is monotone, you always want to be sizing down. The second reason has to do with the ace-high texture. When the board is ace-10-5 and you want to bet high frequency, you're going to have hands like ace-deuce or pocket kings, pocket queens, pocket jacks. These are hands that are good enough to bet, but it doesn't make sense to bet very big with them. Imagine you have kings. You want to bet kings for protection, but what are you really getting protection from? In order to make the protection bet kind of reasonable on this kind of texture, you do need to just size down a bit. So we have these 2 factors together making Linus want to size down, and Linus, being the artist that he is, recognizes this, and he's flexible enough to say, okay, I'll just bet 10% pot and I know how to play it from there. It's a very kind of deep technical play. I know it looks like micro stakes, but this is an appropriate spot for it. If this board were queen 10-5 two-tone and Linus bet 10% pot, that would be a terrible play. But Linus would never do that. Linus picks the correct spot. So when you look at this, don't think, oh, I can bet 10% pot wherever I want. Think, what is it about this board that makes this bet size correct? This isn't an accident. And, yeah. I mean, hand plays itself, I think, after. Okay, pretty cool hand here. Heads up between Marty Rossi and Macron. I'm personally not familiar with either of these players, so we're just gonna judge by showdowns how they played. Only 100, 200, much lower than hands we've been reviewing previously. Marty Rossi raises 2.5x, gets 3-bet 4x, and calls. And we have a 7-deuce-6 rainbow board. Now, this kind of low board is not a good one to range bet small on because all of your opponent's hands have some, 2 overs or gut shot or something. There's almost no folding if you bet too small. And also all of your broadways and stuff doesn't connect, so you don't have enough pairs to get away with that kind of strategy. So Macron bets 2/3 or close to it, which I think is a good sizing, gets called. Turn deuce of diamonds, relatively bricky card. Of course, neither player is going to improve much. So here, Macron is going to get to push very, very wide in terms of how thin he's value betting. Definitely something like King 7 could just go bet for stacks if he's 100 deep. Here they're like 150 deep, so maybe you need 8s. I'm not sure where the exact threshold is, but you can go really wide on these boards. Your opponent needs to call you down really wide. So he makes a really, really big turn bet, indicating he's going for stacks. Good bet size. Gets called by Marty Rossi, who at this point, a ton of his range is just going to be in bluff catch mode. There's not too much to do about it. You are supposed to sometimes call some high card hands like King Queen and Ace Jack, with the idea being that these hands beat bluffs but can improve to beat value on some river cards that get barreled a lot. So say you have King Queen, river is a queen or a king, you now are super, super strong, and if villain gives up, presumably check and you win with King High. So you want to call some of those as well as pairs and draws. River 9 of spades. It's a good question, whose range does this hit? Macron is barreling presumably 8-9, 10-9, 10-8. Would he be able to shove a 9 on the river? I think there is a decent chance he would be able to shove. So in that sense, it's a fairly good card for his range because a lot of his bluffs improve. We do see him shoving river for 75% pot getting called, and let's see the hands. Macron shows up with 5-3 of diamonds, so pre-flop makes sense, flop makes sense, turn makes sense. River, if we think this is a good card, makes sense. I think well played hand. Marty Rossi, on the other hand, call down with ace of diamonds, 10 of clubs, which is very interesting call down. And whenever you're looking at a call down like this, don't think, wow, this is so crazy, this is so insane. Take a second, take a step back. You know, if these are two high stakes guys, Macron isn't going bet shove with ace king. So ace 10 is a legitimate bluff catcher, it beats bluffs. And then the next step is to think about the removal effects. Ace of diamonds beats bluffs and doesn't block bluffs, right? We always want to think about blockers. So ace of diamonds is a really nice card to have on the river. And basically any ace is good to have in your hand on the river. I'd much rather have the ace of diamonds than a hand like pocket fours. I don't want to have fours in my hand. I don't want to have threes in my hand. I don't want to have jacks in my hand. I want to have the ace or a pair. So ace of diamonds, nice card. 10 of clubs, you need to think, is this a good card or a bad card? Now, 10 of clubs blocks 10-8, blocks 10-9. It's not a diamond, which might give up, so it's, you know, blocks pocket 10s. It's presumably a fairly good card to hold. It doesn't seem too bad. Sure, you block some bluffs, like Jack 10 suited, Queen 10, King 10. Some of those hands are going to bluff sometimes, maybe a decent amount of the time, but this call is actually, I think, probably fairly sharp. I wouldn't be surprised if we plug this hand in a solver and solver is like, you know, that this looks good. Like, would you rather call ace 10 or ace jack? Personally, I rather call ace 10. Would you rather call ace 10 or ace queen? I rather call ace 10. And you're gonna have to call some of these hands, so why not ace 10? I like it. I like the hand. We'll do a quick checkup. Keep in mind that this is a deep hand, right? Like, this is 150 deep. As the sim is loading, I want to mention there is a new course coming out on the Guerrilla Poker website. I don't know if it's out or not by the time this video is out, but the course is about how to check raise, where we break down the strategy, where I break down the strategy of how and why and when we want to check raise, and how to pick the hand types, the logic of everything, and how to play turns and rivers. And I think really useful course, kind of a fundamental building block to add to your game. So if you haven't checked that out, first chapter is free and explains why it's important to check raise when against who, when it isn't important. Some useful information there, even if you guys don't dig into the rest. So 7-6 deuce, bet big. Again, ranges here are not accurate, guys, but this isn't going to be important to this analysis. When we change ranges, things don't change that dramatically when you're not looking at frequencies and stuff. So turn deuce of diamonds, and here you can see, first of all, 5-3 of diamonds betting. Second, you can see that the in-position player is meant to, like I mentioned, call these like pocket 5s, pocket 8s, 6x, 7x region, actually even shove a7, but also call ace 10, call ace jack, call ace queen, call king queen. All these hands are getting in there some of the time. 10-8, actually folding a decent amount due to the big bet size. Call, river 9. And here, like you guys can see, river 9 is a really good card for the out of position player. The best rivers for out of position are, deuce is nice, but 8, 9, 10 king, where just tons of bluffs improve. Those are the hands you bluff. You can see on the 9, as I mentioned, you can even just shove king 7. That's how crazy wide you go. You shove 8s, 8, 9, 10, 9. So just shove a lot. And the in-position player is meant to call ace 10 almost all the time. Amazing. It's a printing call. Like I said, ace 10 is better than ace jack. It's better than ace queen. It's better than king queen. You just have tons of bluff catchers in your range, right? So, of course, you'll call every 9. You'll call your trips, you'll call your boats, you'll call your straights, and then you'll call some 7s and some 6s. But ace 10 is a good river bluff catch. Like this hand, you look at the hand history and you think, wow, this is crazy. But no, this is actually very technical, sound blocker play. I want you guys to understand these kind of blocker concepts. On the river, in big pots, blockers just have a huge effect on range composition. Like having a 10 versus having a jack, you can see this in the solver. If you have ace jack, that's ace of diamonds, jack of spades, that's maybe losing half a big blind. Ace of diamonds, 10 of spades, winning half a big blind, or with different suits, which we're not going to get into. Because the 9 is a spade, if you want to block 10-9 suited, you rather have the 10 of hearts. So it's even winning 4 big blinds. And these are real effects, like there's no way around it. Having the 10 of hearts is better than the 10 of spades. And even a 10 of spades is better than a jack of spades. Like, these are real things and they add up to your win rate over and over and over again in big pots and in small pots. So just very important to pay attention to this. Now, I keep going on and on about blockers, but high level poker, you know, there are tons of things going on, but on the river, the crazy stuff you see is often about blockers. That's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and learned a little something. I would love to hear any feedback you guys have in the comments. Really appreciate it. See you guys next time.